Picture two men sitting at a table at their 20-year college reunion in suburban Chicago. Both are 51 years old. Both spent their careers in corporate sales management. Both pull in about $118,000 a year. Both have two kids. Both own homes in similar neighborhoods about 30 minutes outside the city. Marcus has $170,000 saved for retirement. He puts in 5% of his paycheck to his 401k, just enough to get the company match. His mortgage has about 13 years left on it. He figures retirement is still a long way off. 51 feels young. David has $205,000 saved. He also contributes 5% to his 401k. His mortgage has 11 years left. From the outside, these two guys look almost identical financially. Fast forward 16 years. Both men are 67. Both have left the workforce. Marcus has $430,000 in retirement savings. His Social Security check comes in at $1,950 a month. Combined with withdrawals from his savings, he can bring in about $3,100 per month without running his account into the ground. That's roughly $37,200 a year. After his rent, because he had to sell his house, utilities, insurance, and basic grocery bills, there's practically nothing left. He skipped his son's 40th birthday trip to Nashville because he couldn't justify the cost. He checks his bank app constantly. He does the math in his head at night and doesn't like the numbers. David has $1.15 million in retirement savings. His Social Security comes in at $2,350 a month. He can withdraw around $6,000 a month without worrying. That's about $72,000 a year. He spent 2 weeks hiking in New Zealand last spring. He's been quietly setting aside money to help his youngest with a down payment on a house. He doesn't stress about his account balance because he doesn't need to.
The numbers work. He sleeps fine. Same starting point at 51. Same industry. Same income. Wildly different retirements at 67. And here's the part that trips people up. The gap between them wasn't caused by David getting a lucky stock tip. It wasn't an inheritance. It wasn't a promotion that doubled his salary. It came down to a handful of specific decisions David made between 51 and 67. Decisions that seemed ordinary at the time, but quietly compounded into a gap of more than $700,000. This is what most people get completely wrong about their 50s. They assume the financial story is basically written by that point. They think whatever they've accumulated so far is roughly what they'll retire on, maybe with a bit of market growth on top. They've convinced themselves the heavy lifting is behind them. But that's backwards. Your 50s and early 60s aren't the tail end of your financial life. They might be the most important stretch of it. More wealth is built or lost in this window than in any other comparable period. The choices you make between 50 and 67 carry more weight per year than decisions made at almost any other age. So today, I want to walk you through why this window is so unusually powerful, the exact decisions that separate a comfortable retirement from a stressful one, and what you can do right now, no matter where your savings stand, to make sure you end up in a better place. If you're in your 50s or 60s, this is directly relevant to your life today. If you're younger, think of this as a preview of the most consequential financial years you'll ever go through. Before we get into the specific decisions, let me explain why this window is so different from any other period in your life. There are 4 things that converge in your 50s that simply don't line up this way at any other time. First, peak income. Most people hit their highest earning years somewhere in their early to mid-50s. Decades of experience, expertise, and professional credibility have accumulated, and your paycheck reflects that.
A 53-year-old making $120,000 has more potential to save aggressively than a 34-year-old making $70,000, even at the same savings rate percentage. Second, the catch-up contribution window. In 2026, the standard 401k contribution limit is $23,500. But once you hit 50, you can add an extra $7,500 on top of that, bringing your annual max to $31,000. And for people between 60 and 63, there's an even bigger provision,
a super catch-up that pushes the ceiling to $34,750 per year. Roth IRA limits get a similar boost. The standard annual limit is $7,000, but people 50 and older can contribute up to $8,000. These provisions exist because lawmakers recognized that a lot of people arrive at 50 behind on retirement savings. The system is designed to let you accelerate. Third, expenses start shrinking. By the time you hit your early 50s, a lot of the big financial drains from earlier decades are fading. Kids become financially independent. The cost of raising a child through age 17 runs around $310,000 in today's dollars. When that chapter closes, real money opens up. Your mortgage is getting closer to the finish line. If you bought your home in your 30s, you might be within 10 to 15 years of owning it outright, which means your biggest monthly obligation eventually disappears. The point is that your baseline costs often decrease right at the moment your income peaks. Fourth, there's still meaningful time for compounding. People hear 15 years until retirement and assume it's not enough time to make a real difference. That's wrong. At historical average market returns of around 7%, money doubles roughly every 10 years. A dollar you invest at 51 can grow to around $2.60 by the time you're 68. That's not the 40-year runway of a 25-year-old, but it's real.
Combine 15 years of aggressive saving with reduced expenses and catch-up contributions, and you can genuinely transform your retirement picture, even starting from a mediocre position. Now, let's get into the specific decisions that explain how David ended up with $1.15 million, while Marcus ended up with $430,000. Decision 1. David maxed out his catch-up contributions immediately. At 51, David bumped his 401k contribution from 5% up to the annual maximum. His employer matched 3.5% of his $118,000 salary, adding about $4,100 per year. His total annual retirement contribution jumped to roughly $35,000 all in. Marcus kept his contribution at 5%. He told himself he'd increase it once things felt more stable. That moment never really arrived. Over 16 years, David contributed $31,000 per year on average. And with returns and matching, his 401k grew from $205,000 to roughly $900,000. Marcus contributed around $5,900 annually over the same stretch. His account grew from $170,000 to about $390,000. The contribution difference alone accounts for most of the gap between them. David didn't earn more money. He just sent more of the same money toward his future instead of his present. Decision 2. David paid off his mortgage before retirement. At 53, David refinanced his remaining balance into a 15-year loan. His monthly payment went up by about $380, but he'd own his home free and clear by 68. Marcus kept his original loan. The lower payment felt more manageable. He planned to just keep paying it through retirement. By 67, David's housing costs were essentially property taxes and insurance, around $750 a month. Marcus still owed $2,100 a month on his mortgage, with roughly 6 years to go. That's a $1,350 monthly difference in cash flow. And it's not just about the payment. David has a fully paid asset he can sell, downsize, or borrow against if he ever needs to. Marcus has an asset that still has claims against it. The mortgage decision looked minor at 53. By 67, it shapes nearly everything about retirement quality of life. Decision 3. David was strategic about Social Security. David delayed claiming Social Security until age 70. For each year you delay past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by roughly 8%. Waiting from 67 to 70 pushed David's monthly check from $1,950 to $2,350. Marcus claimed at 62. He wanted the money sooner. His benefit was permanently cut by around 30%. dropping from $1,950 down to about $1,365 a month. The monthly difference is nearly $1,000. Over a 20-year retirement, that Social Security decision alone creates a gap of roughly $235,000 in lifetime income. Marcus treated Social Security like something to grab as soon as it was available. David treated it like what it actually is: longevity insurance. Decision 4. David planned for the healthcare gap. Medicare doesn't start until 65. David knew this and spent 2 years before his planned retirement date researching marketplace options, understanding how income levels affect premium subsidies, and building healthcare costs into his budget projections. Marcus was caught off guard. His company downsized at 64, and he lost his job earlier than expected. He scrambled to figure out coverage, overpaid for a COBRA plan for a while, then enrolled in a marketplace plan that cost more than it needed to because he hadn't done the homework.
The disorganized approach cost him close to $14,000 over 2 years. Worse, it set a tone of financial anxiety heading into retirement that never fully went away. Decision 5. David didn't inflate his lifestyle when his expenses dropped. When his kids were finally out of the house and financially on their own, David redirected that freed up money, several $100s a month, straight into his retirement accounts. His day-to-day life stayed roughly the same. When Marcus hit this same milestone, he upgraded his car, put a new deck on the back of his house, and started taking a big trip every year. None of that was wrong, exactly, but the cash flow that could have gone toward his future went toward his present instead. This pattern, keeping lifestyle flat while redirecting the savings, is one of the most underrated wealth-building moves available in your 50s. It doesn't require a higher income. It just requires not spending the money that shows up when your obligations shrink. Let me tell you about someone named Angela, because her story shows what's possible even starting from a pretty bad place. Angela turned 50 with about $55,000 in retirement savings. A health scare in her mid-40s had drained her emergency fund and forced her to pause retirement contributions for almost 3 years. She was behind, and she knew it. She did the math and figured she'd retire with maybe $200,000 if nothing changed. She wasn't willing to accept that. Angela maxed out her 401k catch-up contributions immediately. She picked up a part-time bookkeeping side job that added about $14,000 a year, every dollar of which went into a Roth IRA and a taxable brokerage account. She sold the 4-bedroom house she'd been rattling around in alone and bought a smaller townhouse, freeing up $65,000 in equity that she invested.
She cut out the subscriptions she'd stopped noticing. She drove her car 4 years longer than she'd planned. She started thinking about the gap between what she earned and what she spent as a number to actively manage, not just something that happened to her. By 55, she had $290,000 saved. By 60, $560,000. By 65, $870,000. Angela retired at 66 with just over $950,000 invested, a paid-off home, and a Social Security benefit she delayed for maximum value. Her monthly retirement income exceeds $4,800. She takes a trip every fall. She helped her daughter with moving costs last year. She's not extravagantly wealthy, but she's secure, and she built it entirely in her 50s and early 60s. Now let me talk about what actually stops people from making these moves, because it's not usually a math problem. It's a psychology problem. The first thing that stops people is the belief that it's too late. You look at your account balance, compare it to what you think you should have, and feel defeated. You assume the gap is too big to close. But this ignores the math entirely. Someone who contributes $31,000 a year for 15 years puts in $465,000 in principal alone. Add matching contributions and compounding, and a 15-year sprint of aggressive saving can realistically add $700,000 to $900,000 to a retirement account. That's not the same as starting at 25 and saving consistently for 4 decades, but it's dramatically better than giving up. The second thing that stops people is attachment to a lifestyle they've built. By your early 50s, your habits feel like necessities. The neighborhood feels right. The car feels normal. The vacations feel earned. So, if you're in your 50s right now, don't treat this as the closing chapter of your financial life. Treat it like the most important window you still have. Because the difference between a stressful retirement And a comfortable one isn't luck. It isn't timing. It's a handful of decisions, repeated consistently over the next 10 to 15 years. And if you're younger, remember this. Your future won't be decided all at once. It will be shaped quietly by small choices that don't feel important in the moment. So wherever you are right now, ahead, behind, or somewhere in between, you still have time to change the outcome. The question is, what are you going to do with it?